Today, the question has to be answered is, can I mix my grinds and my ballistics?
No.
Dang it. Not even to make a cake?
Not you.
Okay, not me, sorry. Do I have to split them then?
This is actually a question we get a lot. No, you don't. It depends on it depends on what your goals are, what your priorities are. It's like I said, it's a common question, and there are a lot of different ways to do it. The bad news about fitness is there are very few definitive answers.
Depends.
Beware of people who give you definitive answers, because they are usually wrong some of the time, and by some of the time in parentheses I mean most of the time.
That seems like a definitive answer. Sort of.
Like
when you put it in quotes.
But the good part about that is because the answers aren't usually definitive, it means we get a lot of freedom. So what we talk about, what I like to think about is priorities rather than you can do it or you can't do it.
Okay, priorities are good. How do I find my priorities though?
I don't know.
I feel like I got my home life situated, but I really need to know what my priorities come to when I'm kettlebell training, because I'm really jazzed about it. I need to do it.
I think when this is a question that we're going to answer for people who are closer to the beginner end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
People have been doing this for a while, have probably already found a successful way to do this. But again, if you're a coach, then hopefully this is helpful. If not, just
Whoa, turn it off. No, keep it on. Subscribe.
But let's separate between grinds and ballistics,
Okay.
just to keep it simple, so we don't get into body composition goals. Are you training for a 5-minute snatch test? Are you training for a heavy overhead press? Are you trying to get more full body stiffness by focusing your grinds? Or are you trying to get more full body elasticity by prioritizing your ballistics? So that's one thing we can do, is we can focus on the priorities, and this is just one of a few basic recommendations that that we like to give when it comes to training them both together or apart.
Yeah, it kind of depends, right?
It always depends.
Yeah, always depends. Especially when you get older. Well, if you mix them up, if I want to do grinds and ballistics, let's say that's where I'm at. Which ones do I do first?
So a piece of advice that I hear repeated a lot is do your grinds first. And I understand where that piece of advice came from, but again, it's not set in stone. What are you trying to do? What's more important? So let's say you're doing grinds and you're doing ballistics. Let's say your max press is a 44 and you usually snatch with a 24. Okay. But today you're snatching with a 32.
Okay.
So are you going to do a bunch of pressing and then try to snatch with a kettlebell 2 sizes heavier than normal? No.
Probably not, right?
So whatever requires the most neurological resources, whatever, if you're feeling a little nervous about it, that's the one. Obviously you got to do your warm up, but that's the one you're going to prioritize. Okay. That's the one you're going to put first. So if it's a heavier effort, if it's a new thing, if it's a PR of any sort, do that first. I don't care whether it's grind, ballistic, prioritize what you need to prioritize.
Okay, that makes sense. So making sure the hardest stuff gets out of the way first when you have the most resources available to you from your body.
Pretty simple.
All right, cool. What about the schemes? I mean, what if I train 5 days a week? What if I train 3 days a week? What are we looking at here?
Well, first you're going to need to think about what it is you're really trying to train. What is your desired adaptation?
Let's say that my main focus is to do a snatch test, per se, a 5-minute snatch test, and that's 100 snatches, and I train 5 days a week. How would I prioritize my schedule, maybe?
So one, if you're doing 5 days a week, there are going to be different components to going into your snatch test, but assuming you checked all the boxes, your mobility is solid, you actually have good technical skills, then you're going to want to prioritize power, and you're going to want to prioritize some strength and endurance, because you will, if anybody's done it out there, you will get tired in your muscles. So what I would probably do is I would have more ballistics days than grind days. I wouldn't just let's say a 3-2 scheme would be acceptable. 3 days one, 2 days the other, or you could do 2 and 2, but with a strength endurance day that challenges you a little bit more, both
Right.
your endurance, your grip strength, that sort of thing.
All right.
That's one way to do it. Again, there are a lot of different ways to do it.
Certainly. And then conversely, we could, if you were doing 3 days a week, you could do 2 and 1 or 1, and then the combination. And then generally, like if you're just training kettlebells and you want to get good at them, acquire the skills, and maybe create a balance of a plan. If you're able to train 3 days a week and you're just acquiring skills, maybe focus 1 week where it's 2 days ballistics, 1 day grind, the next week 2 days grind, 1 day ballistic, and see what comes out in the wash.
Well, yeah, your recovery is going to play a big role too. You're not using the muscles the same way
Right.
as your grinds when you are, you're using your ballistics. In one scenario, your grinds, you're looking at continuous tension. You're looking at, constant neurological input. Your ballistics, once you get good at them, are about tension and relaxation.
Yeah.
So you're using more elasticity. Generally, I can do, which is why, you have programs like Simple and Sinister where you can do swings every day. 100 in some cases more. You could do that every day. Probably couldn't do 100 squats every day, at least not comfortably.
Yeah, that's true.
It'd be
Very different.
it'd be pretty awful.
Yeah.
That's a lot of squats.
The muscle mechanisms are going to be different, so you will be able to do ballistics more frequently. In most cases, when you get into hand stuff, sounds dirty.
Yeah. Keep it clean. This is semi-PG-13. Sometimes
But
rated R.
when you get into grip and that sort of thing, tearing calluses, that can be problematic. But generally, you'll be able to train your ballistics more. They're going to take less out of you.
Cool.
And that's something to consider. So if you feel recovered, cool. If you feel like you need to prioritize them, prioritize them. If you need to split them. But focus on what you want most, and then kind of fill in the blanks.
Yeah, that makes sense. So basically, you don't have to split them. You can, but ultimately, as Coach Roger says, prioritize first. Do the stuff that's hardest and most neurologically demanding first, and overall, obviously, whatever is best towards your goals is what you want to focus on. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Stay strong.
Do hand stuff.
Do what?